So, tell me more about this Simcopter mod for City Skylines.
Yeah, basically some intrepid modder has built a way to pilot a helicopter around your city and city skylines, a la Simcopter.
How much does it cost?
God, I was going to ask him that. I wanted to ask him that. I was playing it so slow, and they just jump right into it.
I've been taking all your jokes.
You were just making this nice cup of coffee, and you just chugged it.
Yep.
Just right down the hatch.
Disappointing.
No, that
It is, incidentally, a free mod, because those still exist
Oh.
Yeah.
for a little
What?
while longer.
What? Free
Yeah.
mods.
Right.
So, obviously, we're talking about the big Steam news.
Indeed.
the best Steam news.
Were you guys as upset
Certainly
as
pretty
Reddit
steamy.
was?
I think it's dumb, mostly just because of the lack of control they're putting on it. Like, they've already taken down multiple mods that are stealing other people's content and then just repackaging it and selling it.
Yeah.
And there's some people that those aren't getting taken down. They're sitting there selling those mods for people's money, and they're just stealing free mods from the Nexus.
Also, it's not,
I don't see Valve.
I feel like
Valve support is bad enough. I don't see
Yeah.
them being willing to dedicate the manpower to track all that down and keep a handle on it.
and I'm with you on that. I mean, it's a logistical issue, sure.
Yeah.
They are well within their rights, Bethesda and Valve, to do what they're doing, to give people an option to charge for mods.
Right.
But there are logistical concerns involved.
Yeah.
also, let's not forget that Bethesda, it turns out, was the one who said the 75% goes to them. On top of that, they're not supporting it, so why do they get like all that? Like, that's a lot of money to give to a company.
But that's a logistical
Also,
question.
I think you have to have $100 in your account before they'll let you cash it out.
yeah.
So
there-
most people will probably never get their money
there
out
are
of
details that need to be changed.
Right.
But I'm not going to email death threats to
No, yeah.
modders and-
I mean, to me, it's like, since so much of the modding, I'm gonna move this out of the way. Since so much of the modding community is opposed to it, it's like, why don't, if you're opposed to it, just don't sell your mods. Keep giving your mods away for free.
Stop threatening people with death.
That's just a good life rule in general.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Stop,
Just kind of adopt that across the board.
stop selling your mods. Let somebody else sell it for you.
My guess is, we know that Valve has a full-time economist on staff. My guess is they've actually done a lot of thought about this before they just decided to do it.
Right.
And maybe it'll be good.
I mean, that's what turned Team Fortress around. It was a game that was $20, and they turned it free and sold hats, and it's making
Yeah, but you're
millions. And Dota is the same way. It's a free game that sells cosmetic items, and it's making millions.
And you know what? Valve has always been a company that monetizes mods. Mm-hmm. Team Fortress, Counter-Strike, Day of Defeat.
But that's also
Portal.
supported. That's also supported by them, and all the Dota stuff and all that hats and all that stuff is all them. So basically, somebody will make a skin, submit it to Valve. Valve makes sure it works. Then that's when the money comes in. Not, I made a mod. I'm going to put it on the store. I'm going to say this mod's $100. Oh, this mod doesn't work. That's not my problem.
Yeah.
But you also get to decide if you want to buy that mod or not.
True.
I mean, how many times have I
but the whole.
How many times have I kickstarted a game and then gotten something buggy and unplayable out of it? I'm not going to go and say we should shut down Kickstarter because of this game that didn't turn out very well.
But at the same time, it's like, what is there any quality control? Well, obviously there's no quality control anymore inside of Steam. That's been gone for a while.
Yeah, and I don't think there's any curation on the mods at all.
It
You can
used-
just throw it up there.
It used to be that, they put Final Fantasy 13 on the Steam store, so obviously there's no quality control on there.
Ha! Boom! Take that.
Take that, Matt, wherever you are.
Do you agree, Tank?
But
Yeah, I mean, there's no curation involved in this mod process at all.
Oh, no, I meant, do you agree that Final Fantasy 13 is terrible?
Oh, yeah, it's awful. That's, why would that even be a question?
because Matt Hembry thought it was a good game.
That'll play. I guess, he's been on the other show, so yeah, we'll play.
Yeah.
Never mind.
The game doesn't, though.
Yeah, that's very true.
Oh, the game plays, just not very
It plays
well.
itself. The Fool's Lantern, Episode 6. Continuity Nods. Howdy, y'all. You're listening to the Fool's Lantern podcast, where we discuss current and classic TV and force ourselves to watch the shows we hate because we don't want to watch them.
Watch it, you shelf.
My name is Mark, and I'm here with my co-hosts. Right in front of me, the hungriest host in all of podcasting,
Shanna Teal.
Hey,
Pat, you're ruining it. The first time I do it, you're going to ruin it. That was Patrick Stitch.
Then he's the, what is it?
Oh, right. The token woman of the podcast, Patrick Stitch.
Thank you very much for getting it right.
And on my right is the poor man's Ulysses S. Grant.
I'm Tank.
All right. Today we are not showcasing a new series, but in 2 weeks we will have an episode dedicated to Season 1 of Twin Peaks. Instead, this week we are bringing the Frozen North's JJ on to discuss our favorite shows of all time. You can follow us on Twitter at Fool's Lantern, email us at foolslanternpodcast@gmail.com. Please subscribe to and rate us on iTunes. And finally, all our episodes and more can be found on FN Gaming. What is it?
.net.
There you go.
Yeah.
That's the place.
That was the easy part. And so what have you guys been watching?
Well, okay, I've been watching the big one everyone's talking about. It's Game of Thrones.
I haven't watched any of that yet.
Oh, yeah, I guess I have watched some of that.
Yeah, it's so good. It's so good. That first episode was just such a strong episode that I'm really excited for the rest of the season. And I know some of the plot lines that are coming up.
You've seen 2 episodes now, right?
2 episodes, yes.
Okay.
And I'm very excited for this season. I've also been watching Silicon Valley, which is very good. What is this?
Who's singing back there?
I think that's Brian.
It's Murder in Time.
Game of Thrones. Was he singing the theme song?
He was singing something.
Okay, anyway.
He's interrupting the podcast.
Silicon Valley.
I want to see that.
It's great.
Oh, yeah.
It's very
Stitch
good.
has started watching that as well.
What?
What?
Is that off
It's not
limits?
my turn yet.
Yeah, but if you've
calm
watched a
down.
show that someone mentions, you can jump in and start talking
Yeah.
about it.
Be normal, Stitch.
I can't.
Okay. Anywho, I really like what they've done with the main character. Well, one of the main characters, Peter Gregory, the character, the actor who played him passed away, and they addressed that in the first episode of the second season.
Basically, they did all the scenes for the first season, and they passed away before it even came out. So it's kind of like the elephant in the room, how they were going to handle that.
Yeah, I really respect the way they handled that.
Yeah,
they
did a
didn't
good
just
job.
try to brush it under the rug, like, oh, he went off and did something else or whatever, you know. And I like all those actors, so I think it'll be good.
Yeah.
Also, Daredevil.
That was
been watching Daredevil?
amazing.
Yeah.
Phenomenal.
It was
I really loved it.
It was fantastic until the last 3 episodes.
I haven't
What,
seen
really?
the full season yet.
The last 3 episodes,
I like the last 3 episodes.
I mean, they're fine. I mean, it's not like it was like awful. It's just like it went from amazing to okay, I'm ready for this to be over.
I can't speak on
Really? Because I'm on episode 9. I just watched the big Fisk episode, and I thought it was fantastic.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's so good. And I'm not a big comic book show person,
Right.
but this is like amazing. They know how to film a fight scene. I think we're going to eventually do a showcase on the show, so I won't talk too in depth about it, but
I will
very
say,
good.
I will say it is way better than Arrow.
That is the truth.
It's probably the best comic book television show.
I think it's
Anything?
I think I've enjoyed it more than any of the movies so far, just because they've had so much time to build character, so much time to really dig into the plots and have so much depth going on. And Wilson Fisk is like actually a villain with like pathos and motivation,
Which is actually
Yes, I
surprisingly
love
rare
it.
for Marvel right now.
Like
And
Loki's
their
been
movies.
their only like half decent villain. All the rest of them have been pretty caricaturish. And Kingpin has always been very caricatured in comic books. He's just like a big fat guy who gets mad.
Yeah.
But he's so good in this series.
Yeah,
like,
absolutely.
Very
And they do have him
nuanced.
flip a table at one point, though, which was great because that's a classic Kingpin thing to flip a table. So, but
Yeah.
It feels like you sympathize with him. Like there's some points where you're like, well, maybe he actually is trying to do some kind of like with the Breaking Bad thing where, oh well, he's doing bad, but he's doing it for a good reason. You kind of feel like maybe he isn't the bad guy, but then he is.
Yeah. And I've also been watching Veep. And there's
Oh my God.
that's a good funny show.
That's one of my such a good show.
Yeah, I've been watching other things, but I'm going to let Mark talk about.
It's
we've been watching them together.
Yeah, it's Veep is this. Have you seen it at all?
I have not.
It's it stars Julia Louis-Dreyfus.
Louis. Well, you
What?
got me. Louis. I mean, Julia Louis-Dreyfus. Why are you looking
Is
at
it not
me?
Louise?
That's Louis.
Oh. Oh well. Anyway, it stars
doesn't matter.
Julia Louis. I'm not. I don't know how to recover from this.
I don't know either.
This has been the Fool's Lantern. We'll see you guys in 2 weeks.
No, so she plays the way the series starts. She plays the vice president of the United States, and it plays out almost like an Office type sitcom, where she's kind of sidelined by the president, just trying to find ways to feel important in her position. And it's fantastic. It's created by the guy who did The Thick of It.
That's a good
Yeah.
show. If you can
So
understand.
I mean, it has a
what they're
very
saying.
similar feeling to that, but with a little bit of a different political scheme to it.
When did that come out?
It's on its third season right now, I think.
Oh.
I think so.
Yeah, season 3, HBO. It's fantastic. If you get a chance to watch it, you'll love it within a few episodes.
But yeah,
So
so
I'm gonna
that's
have to
what
check
I've
it
been
out.
watching.
Stitch?
All right, so I've gotten caught up completely on Silicon Valley. I'm not thinking very clear today. Well, it's new. Silicon Valley,
We didn't even have to say it.
which was nice because all the other things I've been watching, a lot of shows. Like everything else is 45 minutes to an hour long an episode. It's real nice. This, like, I can actually watch it and be like, oh, it's actually over. That was really fast. Next episode. So yeah, I've been watching Silicon Valley. It's very, very good. It's really funny, even if it's not like you're like sitting there dying laughing all the time. It's at least a lot of tongue-in-cheek humor.
Yeah, and it's smart.
Yeah, it's smart and it actually makes a lot of sense.
It's written by somebody who understands.
It's
the
written by
culture.
Mike Judge, and
And he's
Nice.
great
he
at
actually
characterization.
he actually spent like 6 months in Silicon Valley as like a low-level programmer
Right.
before he got into TV. So he understands it a little bit and
Yeah.
does a really good job of
And all
representing
the Kumail I've been missing from Harmontown.
it.
Kumail, yeah, he's great in this show.
Yeah, but yeah, that was really good. And I'm caught up, which is great. Also been trying to get caught up on Game of Thrones. That is why Silicon Valley is so refreshing, because it's not so depressing /
When you say you're trying to catch up on Game of Thrones, you mean you're starting from season 1.
season 1, and I'm on season 2, episode 3.
Nice.
And-
Well, if you've gotten that far, you're over the initial slump of not knowing who any of the characters are.
Granted, no one did at the beginning.
I mean, the only characters I really had too much of a problem with was the bastard son. I forget his name.
Jon Snow? You
Jon
don't like
Snow.
him?
No, it's not that I don't like him. I just
Oh, you just couldn't remember
I get
his
it.
name.
I kept getting him confused with the actual legitimate son, the king,
Robb
and
Stark.
because they both look very similar, and so at certain points I was kind of like, "Wait, I thought he was supposed to be on the tower. Why is he leading the army? What? This doesn't make sense. And then why is he back on the tower? He's real fast. Like, this is really cool." Oh, then it finally snapped when I realized that they were two different people. So, but yeah, besides that, actually, it doesn't seem that bad. Maybe it's just I'm not trying to follow it quite as hard, but I feel like I'm understanding
Are
everything.
you casually like? What do you mean you're not trying to follow it?
I'm not like,
You're not playing a video game while you're watching, are you?
no. I'm sitting there and I'm actually watching it, but I'm not like sitting there like trying to get every single tiny itty bitty detail down like everyone kept telling me I had to do. I'm actually just watching it. And I'm like, well,
Might be
You're just
important
letting
to
it
know
hit
this.
your eyeballs. You're not.
I'm paying
thinking-
attention. I'm paying attention to it, but everyone's just like, "Oh, it's so confusing." It doesn't feel that confusing to me. Like I'm
Yeah.
understanding perfectly what's going on.
Well, the only reason it's confusing is because there's so many characters.
Yeah, which I hear maybe it's later on in the series where it starts to get really bad about that. I don't know,
Yes and no.
but so I watched that. Watched about half of the second season of House of Cards, and it's good. I mean, there's definitely a lot of those shocking moments. There's like shocking moments that happen, like when
Yeah.
Spoilers?
yeah.
I mean, I guess it's a. Oh, have you not watched it?
No, but I mean, probably other people haven't.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, we'll
they're
save the
just-
spoilers for
yeah.
if we do a showcase on it.
That first
Yeah.
episode of season 2 has some very surprising things.
Yes.
It's a lot of like shocking, shocking things where even I was like, "Holy crap," because you don't expect it. So yeah, watched about half of that before I started watching Game of Thrones, and then I'm trying to think because there's something I think I'm missing. What are you looking up?
Nothing?
Okay, we'll just say that for now because I can't. I thought there's something else I've been watching, but I can't remember. Maybe it's just all Game of Thrones because it's real exhausting to get through some of those episodes.
I was just fixing a spelling error on my notes.
That's real important for a podcast.
Yeah, it is very important.
But yeah, Game of Thrones, it's all right. It's good.
So good.
Yeah.
It's just like it's exhausting to watch too many episodes in a row.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It's a delight.
Is that it?
Yep. I got halfway through Game of Thrones through House of Cards season 2. And just kind of was like, I need to decompress.
Yeah.
Get out of this for a little bit.
Season 2. So it's on season 3 right now, right?
Yeah, I
Yeah.
still
Okay.
haven't watched very much.
Yeah, we're just at the beginning of season 3, and it's a really good show. But are you getting to the point where it's like, why would anyone believe anything it says now at this point?
Right. He's immersed in so many scandals and questionable things, and there's just, I don't know. I mean, I guess that's supposed to be his charisma and charm that he's able to lie his way out of it. But
I can still enjoy it.
know.
I just have to suspend a little disbelief.
I mean, the performances alone are so good from everybody. His wife, what's her
Robin
name?
Wright, is that what
Yeah.
her name is?
Yeah.
And all just fantastic performances across the board.
Yep.
Make it all worthwhile. For myself, I've been watching Community. Just watched the most recent episode a little bit ago.
The Honda one.
Yeah.
Oh my! Yeah, that's a
great.
fantastic episode.
And also, like, every single commercial for Yahoo Screen is that Honda commercial, so it's just so phenomenal. And like the callbacks to when they did that with Subway.
Yeah,
We had all those Subway gags in the previous seasons.
this is probably the best season they've done.
It's my
I love
favorite
it.
season so far.
And the fact that they've swapped out 2 major characters
Right.
with brand new people, and it doesn't feel like it's lost its footing.
Well, and they're not beating around it, like they're like hitting straight, like, what's so great about Troy? Why'd you guys like Troy so much?
Yeah.
And they're like addressing.
yeah,
it
that is
straight
weird
on.
how some shows will just like
Ignore it.
avert
Right,
their
a
eyes and
character's
pretend it never
gone,
happened.
Right.
Yeah.
But yeah, it's hilarious. On Harmontown, Dan Harmon's podcast, he was making a lot of jokes about being sponsored by Honda on the most recent episode of that too.
That's
which,
one of my favorite
bled
things
through.
is like the product placement, really
Right.
just like hammering it in. They did that on 30 Rock, I think,
Oh my
a few
god,
times.
he's level
right?
7 susceptible.
Oh, that was
So
good.
am I. But just like that tearful delivery of the great features of the Honda, or like the teardrop falling onto the Honda logo.
Yeah.
Just so good, so good. And Keith David is absolutely phenomenal.
Yeah,
Like he's just
Elroy, is that
Elroy Patashnik.
Dude, he's my favorite new character. Like he's so
good. And he fits in so well with everybody.
and there's
It's-
Paget Brewster.
Yeah.
who- I mean,
I
she's
like
not
her.
as awesome as Keith David's character, but I mean, she's still pretty good.
She's
She's
such a
pretty good.
a totally different character type that she gives just an entirely different
Yeah.
texture for them to play with.
But I stepped on what you were saying
Or
about.
like Keith David's delivery of that bit with the after all their emails get leaked and he's coming in with his 2015 T-shirt and just like, oh, look at me, I've got a shirt that's up to the minute.
That was good. I like that.
Oh, so good. But yeah, it's phenomenal. Besides Community, I've been rewatching a lot of the X-Files.
Nice.
Nice.
Which just got updated to HD.
Right, that's what I got a hold of those German. There's
I said Jerkman.
There's a German television station that has them all remastered in HD from the original film
Netflix
prints.
actually has them as of
Do
like
they?
2 days ago.
Yeah,
they?
this is
Yeah.
a recent development.
Yep.
Awesome.
Yes.
I can stop watching them with German text on the screen. But yeah, they look phenomenal. I put up on our Facebook page actually a few comparisons of kind of the original SD scenes from the DVD copies with these, and they look phenomenal. Like everything is so sharp and so clear. It looks like a show that was filmed today.
That could really revive. Like,
Yeah.
people could go back and watch them now and really take them serious. I think some people are turned off. People like Stitch are turned off by old-looking television,
Yeah.
Yeah.
but now you can watch it.
Right.
Stitch.
Hey.
And they're not doing they're not cropping in to make it widescreen. Like it's actually
Whoops.
Turn that.
You
phone
guys
off.
turn your phones off. Go. That was my phone.
Who's texting?
they were originally filmed in 16:9 because that was they were anticipating that becoming the big TV format. So they were filmed in 16:9 and cropped down to 4:3 for broadcast. So they actually have the full frame
That's
to work
awesome.
with for these, and they
Nice.
they look phenomenal. It's held up so well. Besides that, our standard bevy of superhero shows: Flash, Arrow, Gotham, and Shield. Gotham just came back from its hiatus and is still slightly below middling. Arrow, I think they just had the last episode of season 3, and it's actually really enjoyable. The last few episodes have been pretty exciting.
Yep.
Flash, it's pretty good. I'm getting into some of the bigger mythology stuff now with Reverse Flash and time travel-y, Speed Force stuff. You know, he's the
opposite.
He's the antithesis of Flash.
Does that mean he's slow?
No, he's also fast.
He always has to run the opposite way of Flash. That's how it works, right?
And then we also got caught up finally back into watching Agents of S.H.I.E.L.D.
Which, not one of the best episodes that we just watched.
No.
It's so weird how it's like they'll have 2 great episodes, and then a really, really boring, pointless one, and then a good episode, and then another pointless one.
Mm-hmm. And it seems like most of those tie in with whether it's a S.H.I.E.L.D. episode or an Inhumans episode recently, because like all the superpower stuff is really interesting, and there's lots of new characters, and they have interesting backstory and mythology that they're building there.
In a way, I think it just feels like it's gotten really busy, the plot.
Right.
Because you've got Hydra still, and other things, 2 other organizations, and then another organization, and then, yeah,
and you've got...
and then a part of that organization by himself.
Now.
Yeah, exactly.
And
when you've got like
almost his amazing mustache,
6 or 7 plots running in one episode, that's gonna hurt the quality.
Right. And then there's all the back and forth, like who's betraying who over at Real S.H.I.E.L.D. is like is Simmons betraying May? Is what's just so much that they're trying to do at the same time.
Yep.
But I mean, it's not bad. It's just cluttered and kind of clumsy.
Yeah.
It should be
still
better.
good enough to watch.
Yeah.
But not amazing.
Right.
Also, I watched over half of Better Call Saul. That was the other one I couldn't remember, which is the most recent one I've been watching because I watched it literally right before we came over here.
Mm-hmm. I'm still trying to find time to catch up. It's because, it's not on Netflix.
Too many shows.
Right.
Too many good shows. Not
true.
Well, it's part of the cord cutter's dilemma for us.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I mean...
mostly I don't regret the decision, but sometimes it comes back to bite us.
I mean, for me, all I did was, if I really want to watch a show that bad, $20 is cheaper than going to a movie in most cases.
Yeah, we've done that for 1 or 2 shows.
Yeah. Like as soon as I kind of thought about that, I'm like, well, I really want to watch a show, but it's not on right now. It's on Netflix. Well, $20. I mean, that's a movie a lot of times, and you own that. It's not like a rental.
Right.
But it is $20.
Well, yeah, it is $20, but you're going to get your money back if you actually watch the full season.
It's 2 months of... Well, that's like 3 months of Netflix. Mm-hmm. But anything else?
No, that's all I got.
All right. So speaking of paying for and downloading shows that you can't watch normally, we've been watching some Comedy Bang Bang recently, the newest season.
Yes.
4B. Is it 4B?
4B.
They're doing 40 episodes and they're broken into 10 episode segments.
It's the second half of the 3rd season, I think.
Oh,
no, is it the 4th?
I think it's the 4th season.
Probably right.
Do they call it 4B or not 4B?
No.
Well,
they don't call it that. And it's been a fantastic show so far.
We're obsessed with that show.
The last stretch to have Reggie in it, unfortunately. They're replacing him with
Kid Cudi, which I don't know how anyone could replace Reggie, but I'll give him a chance. It's kind of a shame. He's with James Corden now, and I don't think they utilize him as fully as they should. But anywho, that'll be a sad day.
Yeah, so I'm watching that. Obviously, Community. Also, another Yahoo series, Other Space.
I've seen the commercials for that a couple times.
Yeah, it has Joel Hodgson, and you have to say this name.
Trace Bellow?
Trace Bulow?
Crow.
It's
Crowbot.
like a
from Mystery Science Theater.
Crotty Robot.
Yeah.
And also Karen Sony, he's from Safety Not Guaranteed and a few other, and some like telecom commercials.
Oh, okay. Is that the second Crow or the first Crow? Bill Corbett was one of them. I think he was the first.
I don't
Crow.
know.
I think it's the second.
Must be the second one.
Yeah, when he changed his bowling pin.
Right. But I'm highlighting these 3 because they're the best. They're the best characters on the show.
Right.
It's not great, but it's pretty good.
Yeah.
Although
Neil Casey is pretty good too.
Yahoo Screen is freaking terrible.
Oh my
It's
god!
atrocious.
Like, no, you haven't seen how bad it is on this show.
It's
on
good for Community.
Every
compared
single
to this.
episode, at some point, the screen just like cuts out and it turns into like colors and shapes and stuff.
At first, we thought it was like an artistic move because it happened right when they warped into some other
like
space.
A wormhole.
I was like, "What is this? Like 2001: A Space Odyssey?" The very end, just colorful screens.
Fucked up.
It was all fucked up.
That's terrible. Community, they're just like the ads on there, and like the ads will break in the middle of a scene rather than at a scene break, or they've got like pop-up ads now. They're like a banner ad that comes up right on the middle of the screen.
That's terrible.
Yahoo screen is garbage.
Yeah.
But it has some.
Or there's whatever that show about the Las Vegas basketball team.
Oh yeah, what is it?
And
the
volume is like 8 times higher than everything else. It's just
that's awesome.
Oh boy.
So, other than that, you guys have mentioned the other shows I've watched. So now it's time for news.
Nudes.
Didn't you say that last time?
Maybe I have a cold, huh? Maybe I'm trying to say news, but
No,
I can only say nudes because I got the cold.
Okay, the first story I have, we're all going to be very excited for, and I'm sure you guys already know this, but Netflix has ordered a second season of Marvel's Daredevil. Woohoo! It's going to be airing in 2016. The main showrunner I know. The main showrunner won't be running the show next season due to previous engagements, but they're going to hand it over to Doug Petrie, who's worked on Buffy the Vampire Slayer and American Horror Story, and Mark.
I'm pretty okay with it too. I think Stephen DeKnight's 2 episodes he directed were, I think, the weakest of the season. So I'm more than happy with that. And but even before that comes out, we still have Luke Cage and AKA Jessica Jones.
Yes,
and then Iron Fist shortly after that, and then a Defenders series. With
Marvel's
all of them.
Defenders,
so.
So Netflix is gonna really flesh out their Marvel content.
Absolutely.
It's gonna be great.
They're gonna hit critical mass for Marvel soon.
Yeah,
people are gonna I feel like the interest is gonna start to decline.
Right.
Oversaturation,
or it'll just hit the point where it's not a Marvel thing anymore. It's just another shared universe on TV that people don't even think about.
I disagree with you, Mark. Don't you think the American public would be oversaturated with CSIs by now?
You got me.
That's a good point.
I backed down from my point.
Don't you think people would be tired of Adam Sandler movies by now?
Yeah.
And Real Housewives.
Yeah, exactly.
People are tired of Adam Sandler movies. They don't make the money they used to.
Really?
Yeah. I mean, they still make money. They still 3 out of 4 of his movies double their initial cost.
Terrible.
But
yeah, totally awful.
But they're not like the movie of the summer anymore.
All right.
But,
our next story, The Daily Show, Jon Stewart announces his final episode. So he just announced it's going to be on August 6th. And Trevor Noah's stepping in.
Is it weird? I thought that already happened months ago.
No, he announced that he was leaving.
Oh, okay.
We picked the replacement, and now he's going to have his final show on August 6th. So, yeah, end of an era.
End of an era.
Anti-Semite Shen over here.
Wow.
Oh, no. All right. I have more news on the Muppet Show revival as well. So, according to Entertainment Weekly, the planned Muppet Show will be filmed in a mockumentary style.
Oh.
And it'll take stylistic cues from 30 Rock and The Office.
30 Rock.
So,
some of The Office.
The show's creators are saying this will be a more adult Muppet Show for kids of all ages. What does that mean?
The word adult is such a weird... I mean, it could mean so many things.
Right.
Yeah.
And then the kids of all ages things kind of cancels that out.
Yeah, I know. Yeah. I don't know if they did that on purpose or what, but it's going to be like the behind-the-scenes running the show sort of drama between the characters.
I like the Muppet Show. I want that. Yeah. I want the variety show. And then there's all the behind-the-scenes of Kermit trying to get everyone wrangled and... such a good show.
See. I know. It might be terrible.
Except for that Houses segment. Those are awful.
I want the Muppet Show where there are no Muppets and it's just everybody painted in like different color of body paint. And
that's you can find that on the internet.
Yeah, I'm sure that
I want that on live TV. Tank. That's what I want.
That would be...
We never get what we want, do we?
What else you got?
This one's kind of not the biggest news story, but I'm a Conan fan, so I thought I'd include it. A Conan writer went on a rant. No.
What?
Conan O'Brien. Calm down. Went on a rant basically saying that Jimmy Fallon sucks.
Detective Conan? I agree with him.
No, Conan the TBS late night talk show. You're blowing up the speakers.
You are.
No, I'm not. Give me that. That was his laughing.
Yeah, so he kind of criticized Kimmel's pranks, Chris Hardwick's at Midnight's hashtags, and Fallon's just every single segment that he does.
Yeah, they're all three of those are terrible.
Yeah.
Except for Conan.
I'll read some example tweets and then we can discuss it. Comedy in 2015 needs a severe motherfucking shakeup. No celebrities, no parodies, no pranks, no mashups or hashtag wars. I'm fat. That's one of his.
I agree with all of those, actually.
Yeah.
That's my thing with any time I've watched Jimmy Fallon, which isn't that often. He'll have like a 45-second joke that they spin into a 10-minute segment.
Yeah. It's like, I will say, Jimmy Fallon is entertaining. Entertain
Jimmy
me.
Fallon is entertain me.
Entertain memes?
But
Actually, that would work with it. Entertain meme.
I can't talk today. But anyway, it's like a shallow sort of laughter. It's like, haha, fun things are happening. But like, it's not a Conan segment.
Right.
That really makes me
I don't
laugh.
disagree with that, but
Conan had a pretty good response.
yeah, what was that?
He tweeted out, I wish one of my writers would focus on making my show funnier instead of tweeting stupid things about the state of late night comedy.
That's a good response.
I don't disagree with what he's saying, but I think it's a false dilemma because sure, they have shallow comedy. It's really pointless, but we have
doesn't need to affect what they're doing.
Right. We have Conan still, and we have Stephen Colbert taking over soon. And I'm sure he's not going to do just the same.
He won't.
I'm sure he's going to do something a little more interesting.
Yeah.
And at least they're not Seth Meyers.
Oh God.
I mean, what I will say is that it's always kind of been that way. It's always kind of been shallow.
At least.
I mean, this is
and yes, this is shallow entertainment. But at least it's more entertaining than Jay Leno. Jay Leno is terrible.
It's like these, I've always said, Jimmy Fallon has a very punchable face.
I disagree.
I mean, every time I see him, I'm like, I don't know why, I just want to punch him in the face.
He's too smiley and positive, I guess. You want to feel like your comedians hate themselves.
But that aside, it's one of those things where I used to always say, oh well, let's just they just get rid of him. And I just realized. It's just one of those things where it's just they're new, and of course, I don't watch any of those shows. I don't even watch Conan and I like Conan.
Well, and as much as I criticize Jimmy Fallon for having his little celebrity segments, I guess Conan did too with his Abe Vigoda and what is it? That one piano player,
the masturbating bear.
No, he wasn't a celebrity, but anyway.
Yeah, he is.
I don't know. I'm just a big fan of Conan, and I miss that sort of.
He's right.
He's right, but
we have alternatives. So,
that's true.
Yeah. Oh well,
that's true.
If they weren't getting viewers, which is all these networks care about, they're supposed to be shallow. Then they would have taken them off already.
Yep.
Yeah.
So, anything else?
Yes. So everybody likes the movie Galaxy Quest, right?
Absolutely. That's an all-time favorite.
Apparently, there's a TV series in the works, and I don't know I don't like this. Because the Galaxy Quest movie is a placeholder for Star Trek.
Is it a TV?
He's got yes.
Ask your question.
Is this a TV series about the movie Galaxy Quest, or is this a TV series that the movie Galaxy Quest is about?
I don't know. Paramount wouldn't comment on this news story. It is going to happen, but we don't know exactly what the plot will be. And if it's based on the series that the movie was supposed to be,
right,
that would piss me off because that's
supposed to be a comedy about the actors who are in a serious sci-fi movie,
right,
like Star Trek
show,
right.
Yeah,
it would be weird if they did an actual Galaxy Quest series.
But yeah, it's just another one of those things where we're just making movies into TV shows,
right.
Churn them out.
People are just getting lazy.
Okay, so
Galaxy Quest just needs to stand on its own. That was a well encapsulated movie. Hits all the right tropes, makes fun of the right stuff. And
it was great.
Perfect.
Yep.
So going back to the previous news story, which just kind of ties into for me, this is actually something that to be legitimately disappointed or mad about because this actually cheapens your idea of something. It cheapens the idea of I haven't seen it, but of Galaxy Quest. It sounds like
you like Fargo though.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So you're
no. And I'm saying
anytime you take an original IP,
I'm not saying
expand on it.
It's
you're
not
risking cheapening it.
It could be good. It could not be good.
It's not. I'm not. That's not the point I'm trying to make. I'm saying going back to your previous news where, everyone's mad about Jimmy Fallon and all that stuff. That isn't cheapening something. It's always been cheap. So that's not something I think people should be mad about. That's the way it's always been.
Some people would disagree with you, like Letterman and Johnny Carson and Conan.
Because they don't make a bunch of racist jokes and sexist jokes like Johnny Carson did?
Oh, no, I mean, as in, it wasn't just segments where celebrities have lip sync battles or they play a little game together and laugh about it. Like,
the times have changed, and now they're trying to get on YouTube, which every time I go to YouTube, I see celebrity lip sync battle. All right, I'm done.
sorry. I just didn't know what
Anything
you were
else?
saying. Huh? That's it.
All right. That was the news. Brought to you by Stitch's Disappointments.
And rants.
Or something, I don't know. So in the tradition of the Frozen North, we're doing a top 5 list, but we're bringing JJ in and trimming it down to top 3. Mm-hmm. Hey, how you doing, JJ?
I am wonderful. Happy to be here.
We can't have
glad to have you. Always stepping on my lines.
What happened?
We're glad to have you here.
Oh,
yeah.
I'm glad to be here. Absolutely. Should be fun.
We don't want to talk about 25 separate shows, so we're just doing our top 3s today. And we're going to start with Stitch.
So my number 3, because we go from a descending order. Yes.
Yes.
It was.
Our bloopers will be at the end of the episode.
You mean the entire podcast?
Yes.
Okay. Trailer Park Boys is my third favorite television series. It's a very funny show. They did a lot of experimentation in the first season to get everything set, and then throughout the series, they've always been the lovable buffoons that I
the lovable buffoons,
the lovable baboons that I can relate to. Shanna, what's your number 3?
Hold on, no. I like the show a lot. It wasn't quite good enough to be on my top 3, but the fact that it started in like 2001. Before any other sitcoms, as far as I know, had done the documentary-style sitcom. Amazing. It was actually groundbreaking in a way.
It's actually kind of funny that you... I mean, a top 3 shows of all time, I don't know if it's in my top 3, but what I think is so great about it is that it's one of those shows that, like, yeah, these guys are complete idiots, along with everybody else in the show, but there's some sort of a genius in there with the way that they are idiots. You know, It's just like,
right.
Did you really just say that?
The Rickyisms?
In some messed up way. Yeah, okay.
Mm-hmm.
And weirdly, again, for a show like this that's all about being extreme and crude, other than maybe Bubbles, I would say none of the characters are subject to Flanderization. They are all consistently absurd from start to finish in that series.
Oh, yeah, absolutely.
But they have their own characters between them.
Yeah.
Which is great.
So.
And I forgot what I was going to say. Go on.
All right, so that was Stitch's number 3. Oh, Shanna?
My number 3 is Buffy the Vampire Slayer. And I could legitimately talk for an hour about this show, so I won't. I'll just pare it down. It's a story of 3 individuals growing up, maturing as people, dealing with real-world problems in a real way. Like, I feel like a lot of series kind of brush, how do you pay rent?
Yeah.
How do you deal with grieving?
Right.
How do you deal with trying to balance this crazy life that she has with being a normal high school student? I know it sounds lame. It's really hard.
It does sound very lame.
Yes.
As someone who really likes the show a lot, it does sound very lame.
It's really hard to convince people to watch this show. This show and another show that's on my list suffer from silly name. And when you say Buffy the Vampire Slayer, everybody just kind of rolls their eyes. But this show has some of the best episodes on television. And
if I could view this as just seasons 2 through 5, it would probably be on my list. It's because of season 1, 6, and 7 that I can't put it on there.
Season 1 is terrible.
I've only watched the first season, so
I made Mark skip it.
I have no warm feelings about this series at all.
Right.
Oh, you should really stick it out and watch it because it is so amazing.
And when you were telling me why you put this on your list earlier, you said some really good things.
Well, okay, continuity nods, which
is
going to be
the fact that the show really rewards you constantly for watching it and remembering things from previous episodes.
In the same way, like you have inside jokes with your friends, you have inside jokes with all of these characters.
Yeah.
And it's kind of like, hey, I remember that episode where Xander got, a penis disease from the Chumash tribe of Indians. Sorry. Excuse me. Also, a little quick thing, tvtropes.org. We all love that, website. We use it a lot. Buffy's the reason it exists.
That's true.
It was started in 2004 based off a forum post, I think, off of buffista.org.
Yeah.
And it was solely focused on Buffy. And then expanded out to.
And some of the biggest trope names are from it too. Like Big Bad is what they called the big bads.
I mean, it's filled with tropes.
That show.
I mean, it's the reason why tropes.com or tvtropes.org exists.
It's weird that 2 of the shows on your top 3 are hard sell shows.
Yeah.
Where people just hear what you're talking about and roll their eyes and don't want to have anything to do with it. Mm-hmm. But everyone that has sat through these shows falls in love with them completely.
So good. Yeah, I can't give away spoilers or anything, but if you want to be like a person on a TV podcast, I think it's part of television history and has influenced modern day television in a way that a lot of shows haven't. So.
Yeah, I would agree.
And, certain things that are terrible exist probably because the show existed, like Twilight and True Blood, but anywho, it's worth watching.
Solid.
I think Buffy's also, it's a very, from the few episodes I've seen with you guys, it's a very 90s show. And I think a lot of people are turned off by that because it's that goofy show. There's no way it possibly holds up today. But it sounds like it does. But
and it's extremely rewatchable.
I was very resistant to watching it.
Yeah,
and I'm glad I did.
Yeah,
so that's my top 3.
I'll watch it when the HD version comes out.
Now it's time for Tank.
My number 3, and probably one of the more controversial entries on here, is Lost.
Boo!
Yeah,
I thought you were going to say Big Bang Theory, and I'd have to stab you.
Lost was phenomenal for the first 3 seasons easily. And it drug down and got weird. The 4th season was still pretty good. 5th season, 6th season were less so. But that show was so important to me growing up. Like September 2004 was when it first came on the air. So I was still in high school at the time. And it was just kind of one of those first shows that really had that big cultural movement, at least in my time. Like the X-Files had that before it, but this was the first one that I was a part of. Like everybody was talking about it. Everybody was, trading their theories and trading their ideas about the show.
Right. Some of them better than the actual
right
realities of the show.
But then you had these characters like Locke and Charlie and Hurley. That just had these phenomenal arcs that they go through over the course of the series, even into the later seasons. Or then Desmond, and like that first episode of season 2 of Lost is one of the best episodes of any TV show ever. Like that introduction to Desmond is just mind blowing when you first see it.
Yep,
like absolutely,
and that scene,
shatters your perceptions of everything that's happened so far. And they do that several other times throughout the series in very, very effective ways. And it definitely loses its way at the end and kind of ends up a mess. But to me, that doesn't diminish what came before it.
Mm-hmm.
Do you guys think a series that starts off phenomenal, like I haven't seen all of Lost, and because everyone keeps telling me, by the time I got to the point where I was watching TV, everyone just tells me just don't even bother. But do you think, because I think everybody who's actually seen Lost always says the same thing. Says the same thing. The first 3-4 episodes or seasons were incredible, and then it falls off after that. Do you guys think because the ending was so, or the last, say, half of the series was so bad that it should discount it as much as everyone says it should be?
I don't think so. I've actually been going through and rewatching the whole series, and I don't think it does. It's been going back now, and it's 11 years since the show originally aired, and kind of knowing where it ends up, knowing that my questions aren't going to be answered. That's not what the show ends up being about. It's about like seeing the characters grow and looking at it through that context. I think takes away a lot of my complaints with the ending.
Yeah.
I think on its own context, it still holds up.
I don't know. For me, it felt like a betrayal because I was so invested in it. I had this great curiosity, and they were great at first at doing all these twists, and it was just fell flat on the floor. Everything.
I think the first 3 seasons, because they are so good, though, I would still recommend watching them. And the problem is, after that, regardless of how you feel about it, if somebody's watching it for the first time, they're gonna want to keep going, regardless of what they've heard.
True.
That's just the way.
Those first 3 seasons are phenomenal.
Yep.
There's
It
no
really
denying. Even if you
propels you
hate the ending, and I do hate the ending, you can't deny how good those ones were.
That's true.
I called in like 2 hours late to work because I had to finish the first season.
Yeah, I started watching it kind of late with my college roommate, we got like the DVDs of the first, like it was during that writer's strike, so season 4 had been delayed, but it was just about to start. Like, okay, we can get caught up. So we got the first 3 seasons, and we would stay up till like 2:00 in the morning. And it's like an episode would end, or like, okay, we've got classes in the morning, we got to go to bed. And
One more episode.
You'd hit that cliffhanger, like, okay, we got to watch the next one.
Yeah.
And we would watch like 8-9 episodes in a row.
Yeah.
And be up till 2 or 3 in the morning.
Right.
I will say it kind of ruined me for future shows, though, because any show that is super mystery and twist heavy now, that I just get like, ugh.
Right, and that's kind of part of the influence the show's had. So many shows tried to replicate that. They tried to force, which Lost, kind of stumbled into accidentally. Yeah. They tried to recreate that cultural, like everyone trying to gather around the show and figure it out.
Right.
So that was that huge trend then of shows with like Flash Forward and stuff like that, with like some big mystery.
Heroes.
Yeah.
No.
A little bit.
Bad.
Bad.
Heroes had one very solid season, and then garbage after that. But
it's going to be interesting because eventually I do want to watch, and I'll stop after this. I do really actually want to watch Last of Somebody, because after watching Game of Thrones and everyone's like, oh, it's so complicated, and then I watch, I'm like, yeah, it's complex, but it's not unobtainable to me personally. And with playing Bloodborne now, everyone's like, oh, it's so hard. I'm like, well, yeah. Like, that's what prevented me from playing games. So I'm trying to go back and see these like other series or things that everyone kept saying.
You don't want to take their word for it.
Yeah, I'm not really, because I'm wondering if maybe with me, since I'm no longer like having to wait every week to see what they do to trip over themselves, and it's just another episode. I wonder if maybe for me, as somebody coming in fresh, it might be better.
Yeah, probably. Solid. Now it's time for JJ's number 3.
You're not supposed to steal my words. I say solid after we do.
No, I say solid now.
Ridiculous.
I just steal your format and
I think it's
television.
You did 3 instead of 5.
That's true.
I think it's whoever's sitting in the chair gets to say solid.
I'm pretty sure I didn't start doing top 5 lists before anybody else on the planet. So
True. Prove
you're
it.
safe, dude. My number 3 would be a miniseries, actually, Band of Brothers
Fantastic.
on HBO.
Oh, so good.
I need to see that.
Honestly,
yes, you
do. This, along with the other 2 on my list, they're mainly there because I could literally watch all these series over and over again and never get tired of them. Band of Brothers, first of all, I love war movies, and Saving Private Ryan is one of my favorite movies of all time, and one of the big reasons is, yes, it's got these phenomenal action sequences and shows you what it's, really like down when you're in battle. But this does it and stretches it out to where you really get to know all these characters, and you really, really get a sense of what these people went through. Obviously there's no 100% way to feel that.
Right.
But to actually, see some of these things and listen to the stories that they're telling on there, it's just phenomenal. I've never met anybody who hasn't liked this when they've seen it, so.
Yeah. And Damian Lewis, that right there. Yep. That's the lead actor in that.
Right.
Ever since that show, I've looked for him anywhere he goes. He's always
the
fantastic.
Homeland guy.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So.
I'm going to try not to like it now.
Have you not seen it?
No.
You should definitely watch
Phenomenal.
it.
As the son of someone in the military, you should watch it.
It's required.
You're required to enjoy any war-based movies and shows.
No, because I straight up told my dad, I hate, I'm not a big war movie guy. I don't hate them, but it's one of those things where I don't want to watch them, then I watch them, I like them.
Right.
Kind of thing.
I think I also really like it because, I think a lot of people when they think of soldiers and, Marines, naval officers, anybody going off to war, they just look at it as those types of people, like soldiers, like Marines. Mm-hmm. This actually humanizes a lot of these people while they're, in the trenches doing these things. And it's just beautifully done.
Mm-hmm.
It's kind of like all along the Western Front, I think, was the old war movie where it's kind of
Yeah, that was from the Germans' point of view, I believe, in World War I, right?
I believe so. It's been a while since I've seen it, but
great movie too.
Mm-hmm.
That's a fantastic choice right there.
Mm-hmm.
I'm glad you said that because you remind me that exists and I need to watch it because I got HBO now.
Get on it. So my number 3 is a sitcom.
Shocker.
First sitcom on the list.
But it's a real solid choice.
It's
Big Bang
It was
Theory.
very, very difficult for me to choose between Curb Your Enthusiasm
And
and
Big
Arrested
Bang Theory.
Development.
Yeah.
And Arrested Development. Get out. Because those are both amazing shows. Mm-hmm. But Curb Your Enthusiasm won out because of Larry David. It's essentially, he was one of the co-creators and co-writers for Seinfeld for probably the first 5 years it ran. and he's just such a character. George from Seinfeld is said to be based on him, and it really shows the way he has these weird neuroses about things, and he's really impatient with people's bullshit, and
yeah, he's not willing to suffer niceties for the sake of just like
He's never willing to like take a little bit of something just to let it go and make things easy. He has to drill down into everything.
For instance, like one of the first things that happens in, I think it was season 1, maybe season 2, is he sees someone on the street who recognizes him, and that guy wants to come up and have what he calls a stop and chat, and he just pretends he doesn't recognize him and snubs him completely. And of course, because it's a sitcom, this comes up later in the episode, maybe the next episode or something.
Chekhov's stop and chat.
Chekhov's stop and chat, where he needs someone to vouch for him when he's accused of something, and that guy remembers being snubbed for that stop and chat and doesn't help him out.
And the whole cast is really great, too.
Yes, it's got a fantastic cast.
Susie Essman is awesome.
And I had to choose this over Arrested Development because I just identify with Larry David so much. It's like he's right most of the time. It's just you can't choose to be an asshole, even though you're right. You sometimes are still an asshole for acting on those things.
Is that HBO as well?
Yes.
It is, yes.
Well, there was also that what was it, like the 7th season? That was all the Seinfeld finale, like re-finale.
Yeah, that was great.
I think it was 7.
Just that entire season with all these Seinfeld characters coming back into it, and like the story arc that they're plotting for the end of their apology finale for Seinfeld.
It's fantastic.
And I love all the directions that they go in, like all these, like George, of course, he got ripped off by the Enron scandal. And, and then it ends with like this nice, just very warm, just little goodbye to Seinfeld.
Yep.
Which
and it even has Keith Richards there, and they address the whole thing in the comedy club. It's like, I wish I hadn't have said that in the comedy club.
Yeah. Yeah.
But sorry. So you two just those 2 series alone, so this is a little quite off topic, but it'll be real fast, have just justified why HBO now is so awesome. Because I pay right now, like I got it because I just wanted to comment Game of Thrones. I thought I was going to cancel it. You guys have just reaffirmed me getting several months of it. Just by that.
Just to ruin that point you made, anything that's over like 3 years old is now on Amazon Prime as well.
Oh, yeah,
So,
but I don't have...
If you're not trying to watch just the newest stuff from HBO, you have other options.
But I am, and those are also available. But that's just me. Yeah. So.
But that's my number 3. And now we're going to go back to Stitch for his number 2.
My number 2 is going to come up here in just a second.
Arrested Development.
Is Arrested I closed out Facebook accidentally. Is Arrested Development.
See, JJ, I'm not the only one helpless without a computer.
Well, I have a computer and I'm helpless.
There you go.
So you don't have an excuse. So like that series used to be where it would come on just randomly and I kind of watch it passively. I thought it was all right, but I never. This was like back before Netflix was a thing,
right?
And I would kind of watch the episode like, these pretty good jokes. It wasn't until you and Shanna turned me on to the series where probably about 50% of the jokes in an episode are all callback jokes, where you have to have seen the other episodes to understand why that's so funny. And ever since when I started watching it, it got to the point where I didn't realize how much I was going to burn through that series, and I'd burn through it. Bye, Brian. Thanks for interrupting the podcast.
He was trying to be
Brian Lordson interruption.
Okay, JJ has to get out of here. Basically, I didn't realize how funny half the jokes were because they were all callbacks to previous episodes, and it's you don't realize
it's something that bears repeat viewing.
Yeah.
Well, and there's so many jokes that are just thrown away in the background for a split second that you don't see till your 4th or 5th time through. You catch it, and you're like, "Oh my goodness, I never noticed that before."
The amount of effort that goes into that show to make it hilarious is amazing.
Yeah. So, watch that. Watch it from season 1 to the latest season on Netflix, which is still pretty good. Not as good as the old ones, but it's also not as big a surprise to me.
Yeah.
So, that's number 2.
Good choice.
I'll try to remember.
Now, Shanna?
Are we holding off our number 2s? I know we share our number 2 with...
Shanna's number 2 is Breaking Bad, but that shows up on someone else's list later.
Yeah, we'll discuss
so we'll talk about it
happens.
then. Tank?
All right, my number 2 is The X-Files. This is we talked about it a little bit already. With the kind of that HD remaster that's showing up, which I did look, and apparently all of season 1 is now in HD on Netflix.
Nice.
So they don't have the rest of them yet, but they're working on it. Anywho, the X-Files started in September 1993. It was it tilled the soil that Lost ended up growing out of. Definitely. It was the first show to have that like massive like community groundswell behind it. It had this enormous mysterious backstory with the, is it aliens, government conspiracies, supernatural occurrences. It had just so many questions and so few answers, and just an absolutely just phenomenal, intriguing, entrancing show.
And a sweet opening theme.
Absolutely. It's still just one of the creepiest opening themes is like all the the creepy handprint, the ghost walking down the hallway.
Yeah.
Just phenomenal. Yeah.
That doesn't sound anything
no,
like
that was unbelievably bad.
Do it again.
Okay. That's not what it sounds like.
And the show went on for 9 seasons. It had 8 really good seasons. That last season was kind of rough.
When did Mulder leave?
He left for the 9th season.
Oh, there you have it.
That was when the T-1000 came on as the replacement, whose name I can never remember. The highest ratings for the show were in season 6, but I looked on a ratings chart. The lowest ratings the show ever got, there were 10 episodes that got below a 7.0 Nielsen rating, which is phenomenal.
Yeah.
By today's standards.
Yeah. But the one of the best episodes, I think, of that entire series, Vince Gilligan wrote and directed a lot of episodes of X-Files. And one of them in season 6 was called Drive, about a guy who has something wrong with his head that if he goes below a certain speed, he'll die. And Mulder's the only one.
That's an unfamiliar plot line.
It's played by Bryan Cranston.
Nice.
And that's actually how Bryan Cranston and Vince Gilligan met. So that's how he got the Breaking Bad gig. And Mulder's the only one who believes him. It was some government experiment that's like made his brain move it to the wrong frequency. And so it's just like this crazy road trip of Mulder and Bryan Cranston going cross country in the desert.
Nice.
Outrunning trains and like carjacking cars at a gas station when their car runs out of gas. It's a phenomenal episode.
Making meth?
Yes.
Not quite.
There's a weird subplot with
right.
them making meth.
They just stopped. He just had to run in circles while they were making it. It was weird. Then they had another of Vince Gilligan's episodes, Ex-Cops, that they would it's just cops with Mulder and Scully and a weird supernatural thing. And Vince Gilligan tried to get them to not have any of the X-Files branding anywhere in the episode. He wanted it to just be an episode of Cops.
That would have been awesome.
Like literally the Cops opening, the Cops title card, the Cops credits, but just have Mulder and Scully be in it.
That's funny.
And they didn't let them do that.
Terrible. Aww. What a disappointment.
But it also had a couple of spinoffs. There was The Lone Gunman and Millennium, which was more of like a Illuminati kind of government end of days conspiracy based thing. And it was also one of the big shows hit by the Saint Elsewhere World Within a Snow Globe.
Along with The Simpsons.
Universe, along with The Simpsons and The Wire and Law and Order and pretty much everything else ever on TV. But yeah, I could go on and on and on. I mean, there's great characters like the Fluke Man and Clyde Bruckman and Postmodern Prometheus is one of the just fantastic episodes in that series. It's really good. And the less said about super soldiers in the second movie, the better. So I'll end it there.
All right. That takes us to JJ.
My number 2 is Battlestar Galactica, but it shows up later on, so we'll talk about it then.
And my number 2, Breaking Bad, also shows up somewhere else later on, so we'll get to it then.
Crazy.
Or we'll get to it now, because Stitch's number 1 is...
Breaking Bad.
I'm guessing if you're listening to this podcast, you've probably seen Breaking Bad.
It's a real good show.
The end.
They just gotta get out of here.
I mean, honestly, so much has been said about it, and it's been blogged about so much.
Yeah.
And you've seen it, probably. It's on Netflix, I'm sure. What needs to be said? What needs to be said about it? It's fantastic. It's got an amazing character arc for the main character. Probably one of the best executed shows of all time.
Mm-hmm. And the whole series is good, which is so rare. Like, it escalates in a way that doesn't make it ridiculous, which I really respect Vince Gilligan for keeping it you know.
And it almost escalates in a way that you barely even notice.
Yeah.
It's like just you just suddenly look up like season 2 or 3, and you're like, wait a minute.
Yeah.
I'm no longer comfortable with anything Walter White is doing at a fundamental level.
I think it was season 2 or 3 is when it was more about the family or something. There's like one of them where everyone's like, oh, well, that's a dry season, so, you're just going to slog through it. And at first, like the first episode was, I was like, oh, this is dry. Then all of a sudden I realized this is just kind of like the tone shift. Like they're obviously setting things up, getting us comfortable and seeing what happens behind the scenes when he's not just sitting there making meth in his underwear. I mean,
I was in love with it from the first episode.
Yeah, I definitely
I didn't have to slog through any episode. I
feel like you just need to stop listening to this and go watch it right now. We could talk about it all day. But you know why it's good. Everyone in the world has told you it's good, so go watch it if you haven't.
And don't be all hipster like, oh, it's popular, so it's not good. No, it's extremely popular, and it's also incredible. So
I'm just going to jump drive this on to Shanna's number 1.
Number 1, Battlestar Galactica.
Which is also my number 1 and JJ's number 2.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, this is a great show. It's kind of like philosophy in action. It really makes you think about these serious issues in a fantasy context or a sci-fi context. Like, if JJ, I know you have a few words about this show, don't you?
Well, I mean, I like how, honestly, anytime somebody mentions like that it's a sci-fi show, people are all like, oh, so there's like aliens and spaceships and stuff. No, I mean, there's spaceships obviously, but this is like post-apocalyptic. Human race is about to end. There's real issues that we have to deal with.
Some real hard choices.
The first episode, right off the bat, you've got a ship heading towards you that their communications are out, but they're a part of your fleet. They're literally like heading straight for your ship. What do? Do you blow it up? Do you try to reach out to them?
Hundreds of people on it.
Right, exactly. You don't want these people to die, but at the same time, you don't want them to run into you. What do? You have to, and I mean, I don't want to spoil anything, obviously, but like, it leaves you with not always the answer you're looking for.
Yes. It's not a clean-cut answer.
Yeah, it's very real.
It kind of gets across an idea that when literally the human race is about to become extinct, what you consider moral and just in the normal world is no longer the case. Like an issue like abortion, you might have fundamentally different concepts about that if you're trying to repopulate the universe with
absolutely.
Yeah.
Now, I'm the weird one who probably is the only one in this room who's only watched half of the series.
I don't even know how you do that.
I do 5 episodes. What? So
did you not like it?
It didn't grab me.
We should watch that.
I didn't like it. Neither did Tank.
I didn't say I didn't like it. It's you made the assumption I didn't like it.
I was making fun of what you just said.
Whatever. Like the first half, like there were times that I'm just sitting there thinking, like, well, what are they doing about food? What are they doing about water? Like they were low on water, but all of a sudden something else came up, and while that's happening, even when they're not talking about it, I'm still thinking, well, what about the food and water issue? What about this issue? And it just feels like there's just so much conflict in there, and on top of just the drama and the difficulties. And life is hard in the post-apocalypse. The show. Because sometimes it just doesn't feel like it in some of these post-apocalyptic shows.
I think it definitely feels like it in Battlestar Galactica.
Yeah, like
the fact that space is like the worst place that a human can possibly be. You don't want to be in space. You want to be on a planet, and they deal with that constantly. The way they have to, for the entire first season, they end up just eating algae essentially because they don't have any food, so they have to eat this completely tasteless pulp that just has nutrients for them. They deal with elections. They deal with military control versus civilian control. They deal with exploration. They deal with having to have hope. It's a fantastic show.
And all while on the run from
an enemy
AI that's trying to wipe them out.
Right.
Essentially.
I mean, the fact that they're trying to hold elections when the first thing anybody if this actually happened, I don't ever see them actually doing things like having an election in this situation. I would see them as...
I disagree. And the show actually addresses this.
Yeah.
There are plenty of people. There are plenty of people who think an election is a waste of time and we shouldn't do that. But if all of a sudden you're dealing with civilian unrest and people are saying we're not going to work and we're not going to do what we need to do unless you give us what we want, the military actually has less control than you think it does when you're trying to survive.
Yeah, but what I'm saying is, I think in the real life circumstance, that's what should happen. But I feel like that's what wouldn't happen. But that's what makes it so awesome. Is like, well, any other show would have just been like, well, it's just military law right now, and they're calling for elections. They don't get elections. It's military law. That's easier to write. But they decided, well, we're just going to have elections just so people can have their can feel like they're being heard, at least.
Right. And the reason this show is so good is because it doesn't say this is the answer. It never says this is the answer. It says you are they don't
greater good, like, and
right. They don't tell you what to think.
The morality
they just
is
show
different.
you that there's always going to be people that have different stances on things, and that there's never going to be an easy agreement on anything.
It is rare for there to ever be a real answer in life.
So that's Battlestar Galactica. We're going to go to JJ for his number one now.
Final Fantasy VII.
I mean, yes, that is my number one TV show. I see why you brought him on the show.
Yep.
I mean, it's a show that needs no introduction. Game of Thrones.
Woo.
You know what? Television to me is all about entertainment, and not only does this show make me think on a regular basis, but it keeps me on the edge of my seat, keeps me entertained, and I mean that's what it's all about. There's so much to it. You never know what's going to happen next. I've read the books, so I always think that I know what's going to happen, but because they've gone so off kilter from the books, it really has. I'm still surprised, half the time. Season 1, when the big twist happened towards the end, I was still surprised, even though I knew it was coming, just because of the way they presented it. It was just, I absolutely love it. I adore it, and I can't get enough of the show.
Also, there's nudity.
Yes, that's that too.
There you have it. That's JJ's number one.
Well, yeah, and you have to wait. You have to run. Is that true? Okay.
JJ has to run, so he's giving me the keys to his castle right now.
That was the biggest mistake you ever made, right there.
But
Speaking of keys to the castle, though,
I'll be seeing you never.
Yeah.
That's
Party.
Thank you very much for having me.
Yay! Bye, JJ.
I'm the
Appreciate
I'm the homeowner now.
Nope. I have
Mark,
the keys.
Mark has the keys.
He's the homeowner now.
Yeah, well, till I get back.
Okay.
All right, adios.
See ya. I have a few more words about games.
Sorry about what's going to
I do
happen
too.
to the walls.
That's a great show. And one thing that I love about the way the plot develops is it doesn't develop in a way that's predictable.
right.
George R.R. Martin makes you think you know what's going to happen and then just completely obliterates that plot line.
Right, or even a plot line that you've been building up for
Yeah.
more than a season. We'll just say like, oh wait, nope,
Because everything,
that just fell apart.
nobody is safe. Things are chaotic. And it's in a fantasy setting that I really enjoy.
It's kind of like the opposite of The Walking Dead, where you have like, what's the main character's name in that?
Grimes.
Yeah, Rick Grimes. Where it's like he has plot armor. Like nothing bad will ever happen to him because he's the main.
Oh, plenty
character.
of bad things will happen to him, but
Right,
he has to be there in the plot.
He's never gonna die, because he's the central character of the series. Whereas Game of Thrones can just be like, oh yeah, this guy's the main character. Oh no, he's dead.
Nope.
This guy's the main. Oh no, he's dead too.
Things
So
are
it's
going
like-
to change. This guy just found out something. Nope,
Right.
he's dead.
Or and you'll get characters then that were like the Hound, who was just sort of like a minor antagonist, who is then in season 4 like a big core character.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And they're so good at pushing characters up.
And rounding them out.
Right, or like Jaime Lannister in the 4th season
Yeah.
became like a full-fledged character with lots of depth, and still a scumbag, but one that you kind of like.
Yeah.
This show's a metaphor for global warming, right?
Yep.
It's about how, like, guys, we probably should stop the White Walkers at the wall. No, we're just going to do everything else and then not worry about it until way later when they're actually invading and we're ill-equipped to deal with it.
They don't believe in White Walkers.
It just sounds like an
Yeah,
analogy.
they don't believe in White Walkers.
It just sounds
exactly.
like an
It's-
analogy for any political thing ever.
And it's about complacency, and kind of like
Yes.
assuming that, as is demonstrated time and time again, that assuming the status quo will continue is the worst decision you could
I think-
possibly make.
Then incest
Like
happens.
so far, the only survivors have been the ones who are always prepared for everything to be
Yeah.
terrible.
I feel like objectively, I know this is one of the best shows ever made, but for me, I've just fallen into like the only characters I'm really invested in, like a lot, are Tyrion Lannister, and all the people at the Wall.
Really?
Yeah, because they need to stop those White Walkers.
Yeah. I like the balance of the different tensions. So, like, you have these, like,
watch out
house battles, political things going on, and then you have this nature coming after the entire human race or whatever. And
yeah, and I like how it kind of sets that scale too of like these political games that everyone is playing, and like it's thousands of deaths and everyone's being murdered and butchered, but it's all so petty because your death is coming either way.
Yeah,
right.
Winter is coming.
Winter's coming.
And
I just think the amount of characters and the size of the plot's gotten too big for me personally. When you can watch an hour-long episode and get like 5 minutes of plot for the character that you really want to see something about, it kind of, I don't know. It just bums me out a little bit, and it's like, I got to wait another week to find out what happens to that character, and I got to watch this character I hate for the next 10 minutes. But that's just me picking my favorites. So for anyone who loves all the characters, fantastic.
For me, because like I've mentioned, last week I watched the first season, and I'm 2 episodes into the second season. It is an exhausting show to watch like that. Like, trying to get caught up is like that because, it's such an emotional show and everything. Like, because you have that person you wanted, you're like, yeah. Oh, they're dead. Oh, they're dead. Oh. And then just all that, it's very draining to watch. Also, the episodes are quite long. Every episode is very dense.
Well, and I know, I read the books, so there were moments when I just like threw the book down and I'm like, I can't read this anymore. It's too much. So watching the show, I don't get that same sort of like, are you kidding me? What just happened? Because I've already been burned. Yeah. And I come back for more every time. So
it's amazing to me how just an episode of Game of Thrones feels denser. Dense isn't a bad thing. I'm not saying it is. It just feels denser and more happened than most movies out there. It's pretty amazing to me. Yeah.
Solid show.
Absolutely.
And now it's time for the worst pick on this entire list.
What?
Tank's number 1.
What?
Just kidding.
Big Bang Theory.
Sure, it is Big Bang Theory. Basically, this guy, he wrote Roseanne. He wrote 2.5 Men. How could he do any wrong?
Yeah.
No, my
by living.
Whoa! Let's dial this back a second. Roseanne was actually a good show.
I was just going for context.
All right.
I will say Roseanne is not a show that I like very much.
Roseanne's my number 1.
You already read your number 1.
Oh.
Anywho, so my number 1 is Community, the Dan Harmon creation about some lovable misfits who find each other and through adversity form an unlikely family.
Mm-hmm.
It's just such a unique show in the sitcom world where it's not. It doesn't have the same character archetypes that other shows have. There's not like a straight man. Like, everybody's weird and off in some way. Mm-hmm. And so it's like you can find things to relate with every character.
And and
there's these incredibly colorful like background characters like Starburns and Garrett and Leonard.
Yes.
Who are just like such worlds of their own, just looking at them. And it just the stories are unique and bizarre.
Yeah. And
they'll go from doing these like really crazy like concept parody episodes, like Rob Schraub directed that Law and Order episode about the potato in their science classroom, with Idris Elba from The Wire as the professor. And then there's the paintball episodes, and then there's smaller ones like Annie lost her pen and they got to find out who stole the pen. And so it's just this bottle episode about bottle episodes and also about their relationships. Just the way that they play with format and pacing and character design.
Yeah.
In such a meta way to build the show.
Yeah, I would say it explores tropes, like predictable tropes in an unpredictable way.
This is like the Buffy of sitcoms in a way, where it's like this completely self-aware show. You don't get a lot of self-aware shows, unfortunately, where it gets to that meta level where it's winking at the audience constantly the entire time.
Well, and there's so much of Dan Harmon in it. Like he's a incredibly invested writer. He cares so much about that show. Like if you listen to his podcast and get a feel for him outside of that, or if you read like he does, like he wrote a book or a blog or something that got turned into a book. Either way, like so much of his personality shines through in everything in 4 seasons of that show so far.
Yeah. And the characters are him.
Right.
Like he is clearly this odd blend of Abed and Jeff.
He's almost like the voice of like a subset of our culture. You know what I mean? Or like of a generation almost.
Would you say Dan Harmon is kind of like the Larry David of our generation in a way? Or he puts a lot of himself
Larry
in his...
David's
a little.
I mean, in the way that he's a self-acknowledged asshole. Yes.
He's a little more drunk and aggressively curmudgeonly, but
Larry David or Dan Harmon?
Dan Harmon.
Oh, I think I need to pay more attention to Dan Harmon. He sounds like my kind of guy.
There's a Netflix documentary called Harmontown.
It's fantastic.
It's phenomenal. It's so good, and his podcast is absolutely one of my favorite things to listen to.
I might have to start checking that out.
And I like this show. I think Mark found an example where they use this show as an example why Big Bang Theory is terrible. I know we've said it a bunch, but like in Big Bang Theory, they're going to say, oh, they're all playing Dungeons and Dragons. Look how ridiculous it is that they would be playing this game and the weird things they say. Whereas in Community, when they explored Dungeons and Dragons, they did it right. They showed you how awesome it could be. And that was part of I don't know. I just love it.
They didn't make fun of the game.
The difference between laughing at and laughing with.
Right.
Funny things happen in Dungeons and Dragons when you play it. Right. It's not, look, they're funny because they're playing Dungeons and Dragons.
Right.
Oh, look at
These
us,
human
nerds.
beings are a joke because they play Dungeons and Dragons.
Right.
They're doing nerdy things. They're playing Dungeons and Dragons. It's for the people.
This is off topic at this point. Sorry, but one of the jokes in
Big Bang
Theory was Leonard saying that Windows Vista wasn't good.
Right.
And then the audience just laughing uproariously. The funniest thing they've heard all week.
God.
Right.
So here's what Big Bang Theory is to me. It is the older sibling walking in on the younger sibling doing something nerdy and thinking that's funny. It's like that's all the Big Bang Theory's jokes have ever been.
Yeah, it's a show for parents of nerds
or older coolers, quote unquote, assholes.
And that's a big part of why Community resonates with me is because there's nothing mean-spirited in any of it. It's all about like embracing and celebrating how weird and different everybody is.
Yeah.
Like even like Pierce is a weird kind of racist old jerk.
Yeah.
And Shirley's a little overbearing with her religiousness, and Britt is the worst, and Annie's addicted to Adderall, and Troy's kind of an idiot, and Abed's Abed, and
Jeff's morally bankrupt.
Right.
But they give you reasons to like those
right.
people.
And then they all also, with the way they work together and like lift each other's flaws up, and it's such a good illustration of a ensemble cast.
One of the things that bothered me at first, but then I realized that was actually one of its greatest strengths as a show, is it seems like every like 4 or 5 episodes there's this big blow up where like they all have to talk about how they're completely broken human beings and they need to do better. And it's like, aren't they ever going to do better? But no. Nobody ever changes.
Right.
Everyone just has to recommit to it constantly. Well, that's the best you can do is like try really hard for a week and then forget about it, and then a month later realize you just keep being a better person.
Even in the most recent episode where the hacker that they wouldn't give in to the hacker, so they got everybody's personal information leaked on the internet, and so the entire school's ripping itself apart. And they're just in the study room trying to come up with a catchy way to phrase the lesson they've all learned.
Yeah.
It's like they're just totally self-absorbed and kind of terrible, but they try, and we love them for that.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
And that also kind of just, since we've just been talking about how deep it is, it's also just truly ridiculously funny.
Mm-hmm. Yes.
Like
the
humor is off the wall.
Yeah.
Dean Pelton with his Oculus Rift. One of the funniest things I've seen in months.
Yeah. And or the episode with the school commercial that they were trying to record that was like a documentary format for like the Hearts of Darkness.
Yeah.
That one,
style thing. And Dean's complete emotional breakdown, or the non-clip show, or just just so much stuff they do that is just so absolutely hilarious
and totally unique.
Right.
You know?
Dang it. I was going to bring up the non-clip show during our continuity nod discussion.
Well, we can bring it up again.
Well, that's a good transition. It's time
is.
for Trope Talk.
Trope Talk.
You guys know what tropes are now, so we're going to go straight to Tank, and he's going to tell us about this week's trope.
This week's trope is the continuity nod. And this is a little different from a callback, which everyone's probably familiar with. This is when a show makes usually a very subtle reference to something from its past to provide just kind of depth of context. Or I know you guys mentioned how Buffy has a bunch of them. Or like one of the examples I had here is how in like season 3 or 4, someone's like, man, it kind of feels like the statues in the school follow you around the room. When in the first episode, a witch got trapped in one of those statues and is still like alive in that statue.
Arrested Development's really heavy about that.
Arrested Development has so many of them. Or like with the dead bird do not eat, and that bag shows up in the fridge a few times. Or the cornballer and stuff like that.
Yes.
That bring up recurringly.
Goddamn cornballer.
Don't touch that. Never touch it. 24 had one that I was looking at.
Yes, I was reading about that.
With Tony Almeida's mug that you see, who's like, he's one of the, like, starts off as kind of like an obnoxious little guy back at base and over time becomes this big character. But he had his, like, Chicago Cubs mug that he always drank out of.
And it was such a big deal that people created a fan club.
Right, there was a whole thing about it on the internet. But then, like, later
for his mug, Stitch.
There's a
I
moment
love the internet.
later on in, like, the 5th season when there was an explosion at his home. And one of the shots is just his mug shattered on the ground.
No, the mug.
And so it's just kind of these like running little threads. They don't really, they're not important at all. They're just like, oh yeah,
Yeah, hey, you've been watching. Here's the reward.
If you've been paying attention, and kind of what like we said with Community. And I'm trying to scroll back.
I think it's a super important trope, especially for long running shows, especially for shows that aren't strictly formulaic.
Right.
Because it's telling us that this is a consistent universe. It exists. It's not just
got
a
rules.
vessel for serial content.
Right. Like Community had one where, and I think it was like maybe in the first or second season, where everybody's kind of doing something, and in the background you just see Abed in the back of a car helping deliver a baby. Yeah. And they never pay any attention to it until like 2 seasons later. When someone's like, "Wait, where were you at that time, Abed?" "Oh, I was helping deliver a baby."
Or the
like, are you just always having your own side adventures? Yeah, pretty much.
There's also the Beetlejuice thing,
right?
Which is another fantastic example.
That was a great one. Like, the first season they say Beetlejuice one time.
Don't say it again.
Second season they say Beetlejuice one time. The third season they say it one more time. And the character, it's at their Halloween party, and a guy in a Beetlejuice costume walks by in the background. Yeah, I know. He's going to show up now. It's okay, though. We'll deal with it when it happens.
One of the worst things that can happen if you're not thinking this way as a writer is you get that clips episode,
right,
where the characters are talking about those gosh darn ridiculous antics we got into in the past, but they never say anything specific about the clip you just saw, as if they're all just zombified. Just setting up clips with no real context, and it makes it feel wooden and unreal.
Right. Well, there's like the X-Files had a bunch of these that really helped to add, especially because it was so invested in the characters of Mulder and Scully and like how they were just like really passionate people about what they believed in. And like Mulder, there's the like one of the first UFO enthusiasts that you meet in the show, Max Finnig. And he gets abducted right in front of Mulder, and he drops his cap on the ground. Mulder takes his cap, and throughout the rest of the series, the guy's cap is in the coat rack in Mulder's office. Or there was the stupendous Yappy, this like hack psychic who shows up in like season 3 or 4, and throughout the rest of the series, you'll see him show up on newspaper covers here and there. So I mean, they just had all of these sort of just little subtle depth items that it sprinkled into the show.
I always like it when I see these, even if there's something where I don't always pick up on them, because it shows a lot of attention to detail.
Right, it shows how much the writers care.
Yeah, how much they care, and also it's always nice when you do notice those things. It's kind of like a nice little wink to you, because you're like, oh well, I paid attention enough where I noticed this thing, and
it's a reward for the audience.
It's a reward for the fan, not just the casual viewer.
Yeah.
So I always like when they do like little things like that. In like Arrested Development, where, like I said, I didn't even think it was that funny of a show.
Half their jokes are continuity nods.
Yeah, but I didn't even like the show that much until I watched it and I got those jokes, in which I'm sure I'm still missed over half of them because I wasn't paying enough that close attention
Like
to
the
it.
Army office bench.
Or the smaller times when before Buster loses his hand, and then
There's so many hand jokes
Yeah.
involving Buster.
yeah, and all that stuff. So
Community is such a good show because it
Yeah.
goes the extra mile.
Right.
Like with that Clips episode you mentioned, which is almost like a deconstruction of continuity nods.
Right.
Because it feels like they're giving continuity nods,
Yeah,
but if you're a
feel
real
like, you feel like you're getting into a clip show.
if somebody just watched if someone watched this as their first episode, they would naturally assume these are all clips
Right.
from
that
previous
actually
episodes.
happened.
But for that real fan, they're like, wait a minute.
None of this has ever happened.
The first clip, you're like, wait a minute, did I miss an episode? There's no way I missed an episode. And then you see the next one, you're like, oh.
And I like it on a meta perspective too, is like Dan Harmon just putting a big middle finger to the studio.
Yeah.
Because like
Yeah.
clip shows are a way to save money and do a cheap episode. And this one is like 8 different on location sets, so it was probably their most expensive episode of
That's
the
probably
season.
true. I haven't thought of that. Rick and Morty has a pretty good continuity nod.
Yeah.
When they have to
Oh,
come back
yeah.
from the alternate dimension, and should I spoil it? Doesn't matter. I guess it matters.
Is that with the Cronenbergs?
Yeah. Yeah.
That-
And
that- and that was
issue
a-
doesn't disappear. It comes
Right.
up later.
And it was like a gut punch one. Like it was heavy.
yeah.
Which I that was
And
one
it
of my
sticks with the characters. Like, what is the opposite of that when continuity is just like thrown to the wind and not even
there's a
considered?
Stand by.
But
it's another episode, Shanna.
Rick and Morty was actually one of my strong contenders for my
Such a good
my
show.
list.
I still need to watch
so
that straight
good.
through.
It's
So
fantastic.
And Justin Roiland's just like
I
totally
love that guy.
irreverent sense of humor
There's
and his acting.
His voiceover work is amazing.
There's a continuity lockout, continuity overlap, continuity snarl. There's all kinds of different issues that can. Continuity creep is a good one.
We're giving you guys teasers for future episodes.
Yeah, that's
Wow,
right.
are we really going to get in that granular of detail?
The next few episodes are just going to be continuity.
Continuity creep is where you get so much story built up that you kind of end up with this unmanageable
Right.
lore, kind of the Lost syndrome in a way.
Yeah.
But that's not what we're talking about today. Just to answer Shanna's question.
Yeah. Sorry.
But
I just bought season 1 of Rick and Morty.
Good.
good choice.
I want to rewatch it,
You
actually.
should. I bought the Blu-ray. It's so good.
Any good
So good.
special features on there?
I don't know. I just watched the show. I haven't watched any of the special features yet. They
Have
had
we,
they had a preview for season 2 at like Comic-Con or something, or E3 last year. It was a long time ago.
Uh-huh.
I was listening to
really
a
funny.
roundtable discussion with showrunners, and Dan Harmon was on there. He said the new season's coming soon.
Yeah.
So
Yeah, he's mentioned a few times on Harmontown, but hasn't said any dates. So exciting.
Hey guys, I just bought season 1 of Rick and Morty.
You just
good
said
job.
that.
You just said that.
I know.
That
You
wasn't.
just
That was
want-
not a continuity nod.
That was an editing error.
Yeah.
So does that cover continuity nods?
I think that pretty well covers it. I mean, if you want some more information on continuity nods, send some hate mail to Brian, and we'll get you what you need.
Do you have Brian's actual personal email address?
Yeah, let's give it out.
Yeah, you should for the 2 people that listen.
Or his phone number. I think I have that somewhere.
1436
897
Beckett Lane.
one.
Beckett Lane. Lenexa Avenue. Something. I don't know.
Oh, I thought you were
That's too
going to
many
do like
streets.
the IT crowd long phone number.
01189.
That's going to do it for our show. If you would like to know about what's in Stitch's hatch, you're going to have to tune in next week for the conclusion to this amazing cliffhanger.
I definitely don't want to know.
Stitch, what's in your hatch, Stitch? You can't answer that question. It's our cliffhanger.
I'll tell you what is in my hatch.
I think
next episode.
There you have it.
you should end it right there as you say that with the Lost, like that little end of episode, like
Yeah, Wong or whatever it
that
is.
little like. Ice cream.
in Sudan?
How could you walk against the wind?
How could you stop the earth go round?
You never know which road to take.
One never knows which way goes down.
We look at backwards to the shore.
Are you ready for the fight?
Our intro theme, the Gypsy Song, was made available via Creative Commons by the Freak Fandango Orchestra.
The newspaper ticker theme was made available via Creative Commons Attribution License by Mike Koenig. And the showcase theme, Booga Blue, was made available via the Creative Commons Attribution License by the U.S. Army Blues.